I got a 2002 Jetta here with an EGR code. Already cleared it once, sorry. By once I just mean that I cleared it. I scanned it and I cleared it. EGR regulation range exceeded. Sorry, I got interrupted. So P3130 EGR system regulation range exceeded. Intermittent. So just gonna double check it again. Nothing there. It takes a while maybe to reset or to check the system again. So in measuring block 3, you can see specified air mass and actual air mass. So the ECM uses the MAF sensor to verify exhaust gas recirculation. It's more air is being sucked into the engine right now than expected, and that's because obviously EGR is not getting into the manifold. And I just lost communication, I think. No, I'm all good. So the more EGR gets put into the exhaust gases get put into the intake, the less air gets drawn through the MAF, and you can see that the MAF is reading higher than specified. So what you want to do is check EGR operation. So first you want to make sure that vacuum gets applied here. It was initially, and it just turned off. I think it's either the solenoid acting up or the computer shutting it off. But what you want to do is activate the EGR with the vacuum pump, and then watch the actual come down. But you can see this diaphragm doesn't hold vacuum. If I pinch the hose, vacuum goes up. If I let go, it doesn't. So it needs one of these first. Once we have a good valve in there, we can check the rest of the system. So all I did was turn off and turn on the engine. You can see good vacuum. So it is a matter of the valve either starts to stick or the computer shuts off the valve. So I have a good used EGR valve here. Just double checking the intake flap. That one's good. And the EGR valve itself is also good, and it holds vacuum, whereas that one didn't. So I'm going to put this one in and then see if it'll pass basic setting. It might end up needing a valve as well, but this is the main problem. The diaphragm is broken. Looks like the last time the intake was cleaned was in 2013, so 5 years ago. Be a good time to check it as well. Two 6mm Allens. The screamer doesn't fit into this tight area. Oily mess doesn't let me grab a hold of it too well. Okay, but you have to move this elbow, so there's 2 more 6mm. You only have to remove one. And then you can tilt it. Actually, with both of them loose, you might actually be able to tilt it as well. Okay, so now this elbow can be moved, and now there's 3 5mm. There's 2. And the third one's under here. Okay, you can look at the intake, nice and clean, so that's good. Installation is in reverse of removal. There's a gasket here and an O-ring here. I won't bore you with the details. There's one down here too. These can all be reused, no big deal. And I'll get you a shot with the used one installed and how everything works. So the used EGR is on, intake flap and EGR combo. I also cleaned out this elbow. You can see it's fairly clean. But the side effect of a non-working EGR, the cooler, you can see the cooler holes are plugging up. So we'll have to see if she still passes EGR basic setting after this. If not, we're gonna have to put a cooler in it as well. Okay, so this is with the new EGR, or the good used one installed. You can see the reading came down a bit. It's not as low as it should be. If we switch to basic settings, it's gonna turn on the EGR and then it's gonna turn it off. And you should see a high reading here, which I do, 500, and when it's on it only goes down to about 490. So the EGR itself, the cooler, is probably restricting exhaust flow. easier if I remove this first. Getting at this clamp is easier from underneath, but if you know what to look for, feel for, you can go from the top. I'm proving myself wrong here. Come on, where are we hanging up here? At this point I can drain the coolant out of the cooler, the engine oil cooler, and you can see how high the EGR cooler is compared to where the engine oil cooler is. So most of the coolant that's in here will drain out. System's a bit under pressure right now. Gotta release pressure slowly. Now the hose can come off. Okay, there's two 6mm here. There's some 10mm that hold the cooler in place. And you can also remove the two 12mm here so that this elbow is moved out of the way. And then obviously the big coolant hoses. Yeah, it's on my bench. Yeah, these are supposed to be 12s, but somebody put 13s on here. Okay, now the 10mm. top one is relatively easy to get to. The two on the bottom are somewhat hidden, so you just have to feel for them. Okay, so the lower ones you just feel for with one hand, and then position the socket, and then crack them loose. Holy crap. Whoever tightened this last time was a little bit on the offensive. Defensive. This might be too long. And just same as before, you just feel for it. Put your socket around it and crank. And that just leaves the 3 coolant hoses, the 2 big ones and the little one. Blonde moment, I forgot the side, one's on the side here. It's one nut's loose. See, things come apart a lot easier when you don't over tighten them. Okay, and then we just have those hoses now. This one. Two. You'll see better on your car, trust me. Okay, so you just slide the hose clamps off, and then you should be able to twist the hoses off. If not, use a hose pick tool. Just go between the hose and the cooler. And that should free up the hose. There's one. The air bleed. Oh. And that leaves this one down here. Okay. Yeah, you can see it's completely plugged. Which one of these is the bad one? I know it's kind of hard to tell. Give you another go here, provided the focus works. So here's one, here's the other. One of those is set in an EGR code. This is what a good one should look like. You can see nice openings. So what happens is that focus. So what happens is that coolant goes through this thing and comes out. This is the air bleed here, and exhaust goes in here and then goes to the engine, and basically the coolant just cools the exhaust, and then that's how the EGR system works. Just taking exhaust, recirculates it into the intake system to lower combustion temperatures as well as increase fuel economy. A lot of people will disable their EGR system for power gains, but then they lose out on fuel economy. I'm not sure how noticeable it is though, to be honest. Okay, so the used cooler is in, the used EGR valve is in. So EGR is on and the air mass reduced down to 200. EGR cylinder is duty cycle 99%. Now it's off. This goes back up to 500. And then with the EGR off, now it's going to go on again. It's on now, and you can see good flow, good EGR flow. The air mass, air going through the MAF sensor is reduced because there's more exhaust in the intake. So that's working good. Sorted. Reset. Super Chinese, that's gotta be oh my god, what is this? What happened here? Oh, I'm supposed to fight these guys, huh? Did I just fall down? I hurt myself? I'm tempted to make fighting noises. I don't know if that's politically correct. I'm not understanding the surface here. Is this just a floor mat that I'm looking at? Or is this, am I actually climbing by here? And what's happening to it almost looks like an obstacle because I can't walk past it. I can't wait to hear the audio on this. When I'm while I'm playing and recording, screen capturing, I can't hear the audio. Such nice little booties, huh? Little white sole booties. Oh. I have no idea what that was all about.